Modiga människor.
Modiga människor.
Modiga människor. Varmt välkomna till Modiga människor, avsnitt 138. Och mitt namn är Soja Zacharias dotter. Och i det här avsnittet så får ni träffa Christine Cotton från Frankrike. Hon är biostatistiker med över 23 års erfarenhet från läkemedelsbranschen. Så statistik, det kan hon. Och jag hoppas och tror att ni kommer att tycka att det här avsnittet är minst lika intressant som jag. Jag är fortfarande omtumlad efter den här intervjun. Sen så vill jag bara påminna er om att kanalen endast existerar genom er support. Och det går därför alldeles utmärkt att swisha till 123 092 36 31 eller använda bankgiro 378 39 33. Och glöm inte att märka insättningen med gåva. Jag har även ett PayPal-konto och ett Patreon-konto där man kan bli månadsgivare. Kanalen finns på Spotify och Rumble och Podbean. Samt den egna hemsidan modigamänniskor.se. Och som alltid så vill jag rikta ett varmt tack till alla som stöttar och supportar kanalen. Det betyder så mycket. Tack så mycket. Hello to you, Christine.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, people, and of course you are from French. And in French, people know a lot about you, but I would just do the short documentary about you. And you are a biostatistician since 23 years, and a in the pharmaceutical industry. Yeah, I hope
absolutely.
I did. Yeah, and since you are new for us in Sweden, I would love to hear about you and all about. I mean, I know that you've been doing so much, so just give us a short presentation.
Yeah, thanks, please. So I have been a biostatistician for pharmaceutical industries for 23 years. So I say I have been because I sold my own company in 2018 to a concurrent competitor, to a competitor company, a huge one in France. And that's why I'm not a biostatistician anymore, but I have this 23 years background and experience. So I ran my own company. It was a CRO, so it's a clinical research organization. This is a subcontractor of pharmaceutical industry in charge of clinical trials and several activities such as monitoring, what we call monitoring, data management, and of course, statistics. And I have a master in statistics and economy. With this company, I have worked in all study phases in various therapeutic domains, cardiology, dermatology, endocrinology, gastric domain, gynecology, pneumology, central nervous system, urology, virology. So when you are a subcontractor, it's great because you worked for many companies and you worked in many domains. So you have a huge experience in method, in guidelines, because each lab company has its own process, what we call the SOP, standard operating procedures. and you have to follow many rules to do your job according to the rules. And we will see that in the pharmaceutical industry, we have many guidelines to follow to be sure to provide a job, work report that can be considered as trustable and sure, because if you can't provide a report with results, with false results, because it's very important to conclude if the product has an effect or not. So you can't make mistakes in this kind of job. So you have many rules to follow to check your programs, your data, because it's so important, because the subject is the health of people. We don't sell, I don't know, cups or I don't know, but it's very important. So I've worked for huge companies such as Janssen Silag, Medtronic, Roche, Sanofi, Aventis, and some biotechs, and for various hospitals too. So I have a huge experience in clinical trials. Maybe I've worked on more than 500 clinical trials in my whole career.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
because it was really a pleasant job. Yeah, it was a really pleasant job, and I can't say today that the people I met in pharmaceutical industry are worked badly. I can't, and I never thought this, and I never said this, because all the people I've met were very competent and tried to do the best for the studies and to have results, trustable results. So for me, pharmaceutical industry, it was a world of regulation and a world of trustable people. So that's why when I read the first reports on the COVID-19 vaccines, I was very surprised, because never I have seen in my whole career this kind of trial.
And when was this in time that you read this?
So I read the first reports on the COVID-19 vaccines in December 2020, because what we have to say is that all documents, results, clinical study reports, what we call clinical study reports, are available each time the company asks for an authorization to the authorities. So in December 2020, we have on the FDA website, so the FDA, the authorities in the United States, we have the reports for all companies, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson. We have the reports submitted to the FDA in December 2020, because this is the first time they submit their reports to get or not an authorization. So normally we don't have the reports available on website, but for transparency, this time we have all the reports available. So I read all these reports in December 2020. And here I found that what the media said on TV was not what was written into the reports. So when they said we have to vaccinate people older than 75 years old, you don't have any significant difference between the vaccine and the placebo into the clinical study report. So you can't say the vaccine is efficient for the older people. You can't.
It said this in the report.
Yeah, it's written. We don't have enough people older than 75 years old to provide a statistical significance. So you can say that the vaccine is efficient for older people. It's very simple. In statistics, you have hypothesis. So you have hypothesis is you test in your clinical trial. We have differences between the product and the placebo or the control used to check your efficacy and safety. So you record all the data. So people who are involved into the clinical trials go to see someone, a doctor on specific structure which recruits him and records all the data all along the clinical trial duration. So for the COVID vaccine, it was 24 months. So the first clinical trial is supposed to last 24 months, 2 years. So you run your results. So this is the job of the biostatistician. You program your analysis and you run your results to get the tables, the statistical tables in the results with statistical tests. And with this test, you prove if there is a difference between your vaccine and your placebo. And if your test does not provide evidence of difference between the vaccine and placebo, you can say that there is an effect of the vaccine. It's very, very simple, in fact. It seems to be a difficult job, but it's very simple. So in December 2020, we didn't have any evidence of efficacy for the severe COVID. There is no statistical proof in the reports that the vaccine was effective on the severe COVID-19 cases. The media didn't say this on TV. So this kind of problems or communication issues, I would say, led me to write a report on the Pfizer clinical trial. And I wrote this in November 2021, January 2022. And that's why you have some interviews on the web with my conclusions on this clinical trial. But what we have that we can say that there is no transparency of these results because all were available freely on the website. So anyone could download the reports and read, but the point is that people don't know how to read the results of a clinical study report. But I know because it was my job to provide the tables, the results. So I know to read this.
But when you read this, Kristen, I mean, what was going on in your mind when you read this? At this time I downloaded all the documents available to have my own idea of the real efficacy and safety of the products. So if you look at all the availables, or not all because there are so many, but several important documents, you see that this vaccine had an accelerated development. So they were developed in a very short time.
they found the mRNA product in 3 days. And they started the clinical trial in April 2020. So when you know that the China published the genome, the full genome of the SARS-CoV-2 in January, in 3 months later, you already have the first clinical trials ongoing. So it's very short time. When you know that the phase 2 was started as the phase 1 was not finished, the phase 3 was started as the phase 2 was not finished. So all was done in a very short time. You have 40,000 participants recruited for the clinical Pfizer trial in a very short time. So if all of this made me think that probably we had violation to what we call the good clinical practices. This is there are a set of rules, recommendations, documents to follow for every stakeholder of a clinical trial to be sure that the results are trustable and that the product you are going to put on the market or you are going to administrate to your participants in a clinical trial is not toxic. You know, so when you have that's why I wrote this report according to it's a report expertise according to the good clinical practices. And the good clinical practices are what we have to do to have trustable results. And I compare this usual practices with what was done for the Pfizer's clinical trial. And when you look at all of this, you clearly identify issues because the works was not performed as usually. So there are mistakes into the results, into the methods used to get the results, into the data. So if you don't have trustable data, of course, you don't have trustable results. And this is the object of my report, and this is my conclusion.
And has any news magazine or TV station contacted you?
Of course not. No. They try to make me how do you say this? Shut up.
Yeah, they probably try to shut you down.
Yeah. They try to shout me down.
Shut down.
I've been harassed, insulted, injured for 9 months on Twitter. But I don't care. So the major points of my reports, there are mainly 2, the most important, because you have to read the overall report, but the 2 major points is when you look at maybe I can share my screen. You can see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can maybe
the major here, it is the accelerated development for these vaccines. So you have this for Pfizer, you have this for Moderna, you have this kind of development for each vaccine, each COVID-19 vaccine. So here you have the traditional pathway, how to develop a product in pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
Here you have the accelerated development. So you can see that what was done in 10 years, it has been done in 8 months. So
yeah, this is so crazy. I get like goosebumps. What's the name in English? But this is
yeah, it's dangerous. Of course, you take risk. This is you take risk when you needed 10 years and you do the same job in 8 months. It can't be the same job, of course. So what is very important in my report is that when you look at the immunogenicity, so this is the measurement of the neutralizing antibodies. So this is the criterion chosen to be the you will cut neutralizing antibodies are the chosen criterion to show immunity.
yeah.
So you are protected if you have antibodies, neutralizing antibodies. So what we see is that in November 2020, we had the results on the macaques. And what we see on the macaques is that your neutralizing antibodies dropped here after 2 months after dose 2. It's very clear, yeah.
Can you show us where do you
here on the left, results on the macaques.
on
you have here you
not here. Here?
Yeah, you can see my mouse.
No, I can't.
No, when you are 81, the 81, it's before the vaccine.
It's before. Is it up here?
So you have the jab. So
yeah.
your neutralizing antibodies increase.
Yeah.
And you have measurements 1 month after dose 2, 35 days after dose 2, 42 days after dose 2, 56 days after dose 2. So you have an increase of your neutralizing antibodies and then a decrease. But you have just 2 months measured. So the point is that on the adults, in the clinical trial, on the adults, you have the same. You have an increase of your antibodies and you have a decrease. Not huge one. But then you don't have any measurement after 2 months after dose 2. So why? You have a new product. You have just found the product a few months ago or a few weeks ago. You have a new disease that you don't perfectly know. And it's always the case right now. And you don't measure 3 months after dose 2 just to check that your neutralizing antibodies are high and then that you are protected until 3 months. You don't measure. So why they didn't measure this? Because they knew in December 2020 that there will be a drop of the antibodies.
Yeah. So
if we had this measurement, you are the Pfizer company or Moderna company, it's the same. You show to the authorities a product. You have your 95% efficacy, but it's not really. It's false. If you read my report, 95% it's false. It's not really the good result. But you are the company. You present your reports to the authorities, and you show that your protection, your immunity just lasts 3 months. So you take the risk that your product was not accepted. You understand the point? So you don't measure what you don't want to show, and you don't measure what you don't want to see. Because at that time, December 2020, you can say to the people with a product with a duration of 3 months protection, you can say you will have just 2 doses and you will get your normal life. Mm-hmm. You can say this if you show that the protection drops. So you don't measure. And moreover, we know in the documents of the French authorities, I guess we have the same in all countries in the world, you know that in December 2020, Pfizer was studying a boost. In December 2020. So this is the major, for me, issue of the clinical trial. You don't measure because you don't want that people see that your protection does not last more than 3 months. Mm-hmm. So we have this point, which is very important. And you have a second point. And so here it's the presentation of Pfizer to the CDC. Yeah. And here, this is the measurement.
Will you show it on the big screen?
Yeah. So here is this is the booster dose report. This one.
Which number? Which number?
Here, when you have the arrow, the red arrow.
But which number is it? 55 or on page 56?
It's before 83, but we don't care. What is important? It's that this show the drop.
Yeah.
And this is before dose 3, before your famous booster.
Yeah. Okay.
So this proof, and they recognize it. The protection does not last more than 3, 4, 5 months. That's why you need a boost and a 4th dose and a 5th dose, and I don't know how many after this, but your protection does not last, and they know it since the beginning. So it's very important to understand this, and they are not very happy that a biostatistician like me insist for months to explain this to people, of course.
Of course not.
Yeah. So what we have, which is very important, it's that in October 2020, we have a document presented by the FDA with a list of possible adverse event outcomes. And here, if you read this, you have Guillain-Barré syndrome, transverse myelitis, stroke, convulsion, anaphylaxis. Here is my report. So 22 October 2020. It's Stevenson presentation. So the guy is a director office of biostatistics and epidemiology. So he's not nobody. And in this presentation, you can find this FDA safety surveillance of COVID-19 vaccines draft list of possible adverse event outcomes. And you have your huge list with myocarditis, pericarditis, autoimmune disease, death, pregnancy and birth outcomes, thrombocytopenia, venous thromboembolism, arthritis, but of course, vaccine-enhanced disease. It's the worsening of the disease due to facilitating antibodies. So this list disappeared in December 2020. Nobody talked about this list after this presentation. And what we find in what we call the risk management plan, which is a document written by the company itself, you just find two things. So it is the identified risk at the time of the first authorization. So December 2020. You just find this vaccine-enhanced disease, and you just find anaphylaxis. All the other possible outcomes have disappeared. So if I come back to my presentation, so this is the list, the same. I just copy and paste. And if you look at the adverse events declared in France, because I have just looked in France, you have a huge list of reported adverse events. And here you can find, of course, the same, the same already known in October 2020. So why nobody has talked of this list during 2 years, almost 2 years? And if you look at this famous risk management plan, I think I have this where it is. Here. So this is the link here. So it's difficult to explain because in biostatistics, we have to prove our findings. And that's why it's difficult to explain without showing the tables and the results. So here is the, so here it's the European Medicine Agency, donc EMA. And
what did it say about children? Said something about children up there.
Oh yeah, they say yeah, we can vaccinate
and pregnant and
so
this can
show this.
Yeah.
So you have here risk management plan. So you see first published 23 of December 2020, last updated 23 September 2022, because this document has to be updated each time you had populations. So it was the case because of the first results was on a population older than 16 years old, and then they added the 12, 15 years old, and then they added the 5, 11 years old, and then the babies more than 6 months to 5 years old. So if you look at this, you have a summary of the risk and of the missing information. So if I just search for the risk, summary of risk, yeah. It's not this. It's not the measure, I think. Where it is. Here. List of important risk and missing information. So the risk are the adverse events linked to the vaccine. with a documented link to the vaccine. So you have, of course, the myocarditis and pericarditis, but this risk was added in September 2021. Here, the vaccine-associated enhanced disease, it is present since the beginning. They have removed the anaphylaxis because they say, oh, it's known, it's not necessary to let this into the document. And missing information. Look at this. Use in pregnancy and while breastfeeding. So September 2022. Use in immunocompromised patients. So you don't have any results or any clinical trial results on the pregnant woman. You don't have any clinical trial results on immunocompromised patients. You don't have any clinical trial results on patients with comorbidities, diabetes, cardiovascular disorder, etc. You don't have any results on the patients with autoimmune or inflammatory disorders. You don't know what are the results of interaction with other vaccines. And you don't know what is the long-term safety data. It's missing. So this list, you have this list since December 2020, the first version of this document. And since this December 2020, you don't have any results of any clinical trial on these subpopulations. So why we don't have result on this? Because there are population excluded from the clinical trial. So you can't have result on this because they are excluded from the clinical trial. So if you want results on this, you have to set up other clinical trials, and they were set up. You have a trial on pregnant women. It was finished in July 2022. No result at that from now on. Why?
But
don't know.
Yeah, and that's never happened. I mean, they always give us information about the clinical trials, don't they?
No,
normally
it's not really the point. Normally, you don't have any pregnant woman included into a clinical trial.
Yeah.
But
of
normally,
course,
you don't have advertising pushing pregnant women to have a vaccine or to take a medication. You don't push anybody to take medication with a pass in France, with a pass to be able to go to the restaurant or to the cinema, or I don't know. This is not normal. This is a kind of blackmail. And if you don't have your vaccine, you can't live normally. So no, but so you make all these people taking risk. Because in real life, you have people with flu vaccine in one arm and the COVID vaccine in the other arm the same day. So where are the results statistically proving that there is no issue, no major adverse event with both vaccine the same day? Where are the results? We don't have any. So you make people taking risk. That's the point. So that's why these 2 points with the measurement or the non-measurement of the antibodies, neutralizing antibodies, is so important, because this masked the drop of the antibodies and then the duration of the protection, which is only 3 months or 4. And that's why you need doses after the first 2 doses. And this adverse event list that has totally disappeared and now in real life, in all pharmacovigilance system, you can find many pathologies of this list. And moreover, we have some measurement problems into this trial with a major violation of the good clinical practices that led to my conclusion. So the results, the data cannot be trustable, the result cannot be trustable. We have to stop urgently the use of the Pfizer vaccine and to plan an audit, independent audit, to check all the centers involved into this trial, all the data and all the process used to record the data, because we know that there are frauds into several centers, such as in Argentina, with a guy included into the vaccine who almost died during the trial, and the serious adverse event was not reported into the clinical study report. So your benefit risk ratio is not correct. Your efficacy is not correct. Your safety is not correct. So all this, and you know, in the 15 years old report, that we have missing serious adverse event for Modiga, who is a participant into the trial for the adolescent. And she suffered from 30 serious adverse events, and you just have one reported into the clinical study report. So we have this trial raises many questions, and normally it's the job of the authorities, health authorities, to ask all these questions, and this was not done. So why the authorities accepted the products so quickly without any question, as we had many to ask to the company at this time? So why? So it's for me, it's making people taking risk. That's my summary, my conclusion.
Can you just show us this table 47 and say something about it?
47.
It makes my heart stop when I read all this.
It's a discussion for the myocarditis and pericarditis. So events have been reported, and they say that they found more frequently in adolescents, young male, etc. And they have measures to minimize the risk. And you have several studies, ongoing studies, to document this risk, pharmacovigilance activities. And it's very important that people who suffer from adverse events report to the authorities or the plan system. In France, it's INSM. In Sweden, I don't know. But it's very important to report, because the authorities compute a signal on the basis of the events reported. If you don't report, they can't compute the signal. So it's very important to report for the people, almost for the severe cases, severe adverse events, serious adverse events. And recently they add to this list the famous menstrual problems reported by thousands of women among the world, all over the world, and the signal was identified finally, at least, with and some of them reported this for maybe 1 year already, but it takes several months, almost a year, to identify a signal. And in the meantime, in this document, the adverse event is not reported. And there we have the problem of imputability, what we call imputability, and it is the job of the pharmacovigilance services. And we know, because I've been working with injured people for months now, for 1 year now, and clearly it is very difficult to have your adverse event recognized, imputable to the vaccine. It's very difficult. It takes 6 months, 8 months, and it's perfectly documented. When it's perfectly documented, so you have a person in very good health, you have major troubles, myocarditis or thrombosis, and it takes 8 months to have your paper from pharmacovigilance. It is imputable to the vaccine. Yeah. 8 months. So clearly, we have a product with a clinical trial which does not follow the good clinical practices. So we have a product that is not effective, and which is not safe.
It is. It's so upsetting. But can we, like, are you showing us some more screens?
And I have a document to show, because you can read in this time. So risk and missing information. So, okay.
I just wanted to say that we have over 100,000 reported vaccine injuries in Sweden.
How many?
Over 100,000 reported.
In France, we have 200,000. And you can multiply by minimum 10 and maybe 100. So 100 in France, you have 20 possible 20 millions of people with adverse events. And we have 25% of serious adverse events. So we have, the truth is probably between 2 million and 20 millions, but how many? 5 millions of injured people. But of course, all these adverse events were not recognized and imputable to the vaccine. We don't have 2 million or 2,000 adverse event imputable to the vaccine.
So tell us about this doubts about the conclusion.
So this is my conclusion on the benefits risk balance. So the efficacy, if you read my report, you will understand that the criterion chosen is not the best criterion to measure the overall disease. And 95% is only a small part of the disease, because it's just a symptomatic COVID-19 participant confirmed by PCR test. And if you don't have the PCR test into the clinical trial, you are counted as a success for the vaccine. The immunogenicity, so it's the antibodies dosage, and we have just seen that they don't measure after 2 months after dose 2, because they don't want to show that the protection does not last more than 3 months. Serious adverse event, you have seen that all the serious adverse event have not been reported into the clinical study report, so the safety is false. And at the time of the first report, every report was assessed on a follow-up duration of the people only of 3 months. So you just measure safety, efficacy on a 3 months duration. So you can't have mean-term and long-term safety. Of course, that's why in the risk document, the risk management plan, they can say that we know what is the long-term safety, because we don't know, because it is not measured. And what we say from the beginning is that the transmission was never studied. Was never studied. So any conclusion on any result on the transmission, it just comes from real life studies, but not from clinical trial, because it is not studied into the clinical trials. What we know that it's the asymptomatic cases was never studied. We have excluded population, as we have seen, pregnant women, immunocompromised patients, etc. So these products, that's why in real life, everybody has everyone has understood that the product is not effective, and it is not safe, of course. And it's just a part of the clinical trial. So you have you can have the same report on the preclinical studies, so on the animals, macaques, on rats, and all the phases. We have questions on all the phases: preclinical studies on the animals, clinical study. It is my report. Manufacturing, the manufacturing of the products. When you manufacture billions of doses, are all the controls performed? We don't know. So maybe you have contamination of your product into the jab. We don't know. So there are many questions on this vaccine to ask, and we have not really. We have no response. So it was clear for you all the problems of the, because it's difficult to explain.
Yeah, I mean, clear. It's yeah, you explain it very well, and
thanks. My English is very bad.
No, I think it's actually good, and also with the documents you're showing us. But what I just meant with clear, it's so upsetting, all this. I mean, what they actually are doing to us, and when you explain it in such a good way, it's like mind-blowing that we can even be in this situation. It's hard to, I mean, I've been doing this for a while now, but I mean, it's still hard.
Yeah,
to
so my
take
report is very disturbing for them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean,
very disturbing.
Yeah, you are showing them that.
Yeah, and I am the only one in the world to have written a so detailed report on the trial. So they don't like me a lot, I think.
Of course, I will put a link in the text. We need to put make a summary. Yeah. So I think with all this information you are giving us, Christine, I mean, and you said that you are the only person in the world who has been making this very detailed summary. Yeah. And I mean,
because many people have written things, and very important things, but I think I am the only one to have a so detailed report regarding the good clinical practices, and with the identification of the statistical bias of the results, and the overall development critique of the overall development. So I think I'm the only one.
Yeah. And when you say that, then I'm even more honored to have you in my channel. I mean, because I can understand now why you are this like a thing in their eye, because I mean, you're really doing something to their lie. You are doing a presentation that show everybody that it's fake.
I can't say this. It's not fake.
Yeah,
it's
but
choice of criteria that are choices of criteria that are favorable to conclude to efficacy and safety. And,
but I can say for me it's they are presenting a lie to us, and most of the people have been swallowing it, and I mean that's why we have so many pregnant women taking this shot, because they think it's safe, and they really trust the government when they say so.
Yes, they say so because we have results from real life studies in which they say so. So if you look at many real life results, real life studies results, you will find that there is no improved risk for a pregnant woman. But if you look at seriously at the methodology, if you look at the methodology seriously, you will find that we have many comments to do on this, and that the methodology is not good, and then that the results are shit. So we can't trust the real life results at all. That's the point. Because I have on my website, I have to finish to translate it in English, the comments on the Lancet study on the pregnant woman, and the results announced by the authors are clearly false. They say there is no increase in risk for a pregnant woman. That's not correct. There is a significant increased risk for pregnant women in this study, and with a methodology absolutely piece of shit. When you measure pregnancy issues only after 7 days, only on 7 days after one dose, 7 days, is it sufficient to prove that there is no major risk for pregnant women? 7 days after each dose? Piece of shit. And that's the kind of study you have in real life. And we have to say that the level of proof of a real life study is far less than the level of proof of a clinical trial. And we don't have results of any clinical trial on the population we have just seen before. So that's why they say, pregnant woman, you can go get the vaccine.
It's so upsetting. But with all this, Christine, I mean, how do you see on the nearest future what will happen? What's your point of view?
My point of view, it's that it's finished. Everyone in real life has understood that this product does not prevent to get the disease. Some continue to believe that it prevents from severe COVID-19, but I don't know how many we have left, but maybe very, very few. Everyone is focused on his own activities. COVID, it's for them, it's finished. So for me, I have seen the doses of vaccine and the 4th dose, and for people under 60 years old, you have only 10 or 15% who got the fourth dose. So they don't want a fourth dose.
Okay.
Because they have understood that this is 2 doses and they got the disease, 3 doses they got the disease. So for me it's finished. And in real life you have many adverse events and people talk with friends or family, and when you have some around you that have adverse events, so you understand that this product is not totally safe. They know that it's not effective. They know that it's not safe. So game over. For me, it's game over. I'm a real warrior.
Fantastic.
Warrior.
Yeah.
I am.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too.
Bye. Modiga människor.
Modiga människor.
Modiga människor.
Modiga människor.
Modiga människor.